God, bring it out of us. Whatever it looks like, we say yes to that, Jesus. Oh, we want to grow. We want to be more hungry for you. We want to crave you in ways, God, that we've never craved you before. We say yes to whatever that may look like for our lives. We thank you for your presence today. We thank you, Holy Spirit, that you're in the room, that you're comforting us, that you're here. We praise you for that, God. We thank you that we have an opportunity to approach your throne room with boldness and with confidence, knowing that you love us and that you're for us. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen, amen. You guys may be seated this morning. As you're being seated, would you please, as if you were up here this morning, would you give it up for our band? Killed it. Killed it, killed it. I'm pumped to see the room packed today, mainly because, as you guys know, it snowed last night. And if you're in Tennessee or Kentucky or Alabama, if it snows, that means even if the roads aren't icy, we're probably not getting out on the roads because it snowed, and that's just how it is. And one of the things I know that is true this morning is that our online audience is probably quadruple the size that it normally is, because people that we understand, you guys, we love you, online audience. We know that you still wanted to be here, but you wanted to be safe at the same time. So thank you for that. And real quickly, I just want to give a shout out. I have a good friend watching online this morning. His name is Ron. So Ron, if you're watching, thank you for that. I know another thing that probably we all have in common is that while it was tough getting up this morning, and while many people aren't here, at least we all have triple the amount of bread and milk in our fridge than we normally have, because once again, that's just what you do when you live in Tennessee. I never really understood that, actually, because if we were actually going to get snowed in for days on end, I'm just not sure that bread and milk is the thing that I would want to be stocked with, something that expires so quickly. I'm thinking, let me go get some canned goods or something. I don't know about bread and milk, but if you're new today, or you're watching online, or you haven't been here before, one, my name's Alex, and I've been helping out with Overflow for a few weeks here, and it has been the experience of a lifetime, by the way. So thank you to all the leaders here for putting your trust in me to do so. But we've also been in the middle of a brand new series we started in 2019 called Time to Dream. Have you guys enjoyed it so far? Good. I'm glad. I've been praying that it would mean something to some of you. If you weren't here last week, we started jumping into a story about a guy named Joseph. Now, that's confusing because there's 1,000 Josephs in the Bible. But this one is the same story that most of you heard when you were in Sunday school, if you grew up in Sunday school, Joseph and the coat of many colors. And it's that story. And we believe that there's a lot in that story, but hidden within this passage of Joseph and his life, we believe that there are some God-inspired instructions on how to dream and how to dream correctly as believers. And last week we talked about the necessity of being a dreamer. How God, when he begins looking for people for which he can change the world with, he always starts handpicking dreamers. And we didn't talk about just about the necessity of being a dreamer, because it's one thing to be a dreamer, but it's a whole other thing to dream big. We talked about how when Joseph, he was only 17 years old, and he was still a big dreamer. At the age of 17, living on dad's farm, he was dreaming about ruling the universe. And for us, especially living in small towns like we do, a lot of times we tend to limit ourselves. We tend to limit the dreams and limit what God can do through us, but it's crazy that we do that because we have the Spirit of God living on the inside of us. Why would we limit what God could do in us when the same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead now lives on the inside of us? It doesn't make any sense why we would limit ourselves. But we talked about the need for dreaming big, and we didn't just talk about being a dreamer or dreaming big, but we hit on the importance of learning how to dream with God. Because while Joseph was a dreamer, while he dreamed big, his dreams weren't inspired by the culture and society of the time. They were inspired directly from God. And we talked about the difference in what an American dream looks like and what a God dream looks like, and how it's important for us, if we want to walk in the fullness of what God has for us and our calling, it's important to make sure that if we are dreaming dreams, that we're dreaming dreams that are inspired by God and not necessarily inspired by culture. We only read the first maybe 11 verses of Genesis chapter 37 last week, and that's where we're going to be in this week. And in those first 11 verses, really all we touched on was the fact that Joseph was 17, he had these huge dreams, and that pretty much no one in his family believed in him. In fact, it said they despised him for his dreams. And so today, we're going to jump right back where we left off. We ended at verse 11 last week. We're going to jump right into verse number 12 this week. So if you have your Bibles, we're going to be in Genesis chapter 37, verse number 12. And I'll give you a second to turn there. If you don't have your Bibles or you'd rather pay attention on the screen, I do the same thing. I hardly ever bring my Bible to church anymore because I have it on my phone and we have screens available. So we're going to jump in. Verse number 12. And this is what it says. It says, soon after Joseph had explained his dreams to his family and they despised him for those dreams. Soon after this, Joseph's brothers went to pasture their father's flocks at Shechem. When they had been gone for some time, Jacob said to Joseph, your brothers are pasturing the sheep at Shechem. Get ready, and I will send you to them. I'm ready to go, Joseph replied. Oh, okay, go and see how your brothers are and how the flocks are getting along, Jacob said. Then come back and bring me a report. So Jacob sent him on his way, and Joseph traveled to Shechem from their home in the valley of Hebron. Now we're going to skip to verse number 18, and this is what it says. It says, when Joseph's brothers saw him coming, they recognized him in the distance. As he approached, they made plans to kill him. Here comes the dreamer, they said. Come on, let's kill him and let's throw him into one of these cisterns. We can tell our father a wild animal has eaten him, and then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. But when Reuben heard of their scheme, he came to Joseph's rescue. Let's not kill him, he said. Why should we shed any blood? Let's just throw him into the empty cistern here in the wilderness, and then he'll die without us laying a hand on him. Reuben was secretly planning to rescue Joseph and return him to his father. So when Joseph arrived, his brothers ripped off the beautiful robe he was wearing. They grabbed him and they threw him into the cistern. Now the cistern was empty. There wasn't any water on it. And then just as they were sitting down to eat, I'm going to take a pause right there. It's so brutal. Like, let's rip his clothes off and let's attempt to murder him. And then, like, let's have a picnic. I've never understood. They just sat down to eat like it was nothing. Like, no big deal. Let's just sit down and eat. It says, as they sat down to eat, they looked up and they saw a caravan of camels in the distance coming toward them. It was a group of Ishmaelite traders taking a load of gum, balm, and aromatic resin from Gilead down to Egypt. Judah said to his brothers, what will we gain by killing our brother? We'd have to cover up the crime. Instead of hurting him, let's just sell him to those Ishmaelite traders. After all, he is our own brother, our own flesh and blood. And his brothers agreed. So when the Ishmaelites, who were Midianite traders, came by, Joseph's brothers pulled him out of the cistern and sold him to them for 20 pieces of silver. And the traders took him to Egypt. So we've just entered into a new year. It's 2019. And I know for a fact that there are tons of people in this room who recently made New Year's resolutions. Personally, I didn't make a ton of New Year's resolutions this year, but last year, from 2017 into 2018, I made a lot of them. And one of the biggest, honestly, most life-changing resolutions that I've ever made, I made that year. And my resolution was that I was going to lose weight. Very typical New Year's resolution. But the reason I made this is because in 2017, in August of 2017, I got married. And for those of you who are in a relationship, or maybe you've been married, you understand that there is a certain amount of weight that you take on when you just start dating somebody. Because all you do is you go out to eat all the time. There's nothing else to do. And then when you get married, you know there is a whole nother level of weight that you take on that you swore for years because you saw everybody else get married. And you're like, I'm never going to gain that much weight. And then all of a sudden, it happens. And it happened to me. And from the moment I got married in August of 2017 until January of 2018, I gained about 25 pounds, leaving me at a solid, and by solid, I said that really loosely, I wasn't solid. It left me at about 225 pounds of pure unathletic ability. And I remember in that moment, people, they would always say this to me. They would always say, oh, yeah, she must cook for you, doesn't she? She's really fattening you up. And to that, I would always say, I wish she would cook for me. I'm just kidding. I like to mess with my wife. This is my wife up here. She doesn't cook, but I don't cook either. So it's not like, anything wrong with that. But the problem that came with us not really, now hear me. This does not mean that you need to go up to my wife at the end of the sermon and say, if you need to learn how to cook, you can come over to my house and don't give her a bunch of recipes. That's what happens every time. But what happened is because we didn't cook, we went out to eat all the time. And when we go out to eat, one, we didn't have a lot of money, so we're not going to like nice places. We're not going to the Opera House or the Chandelier, or we're not even going to places like Applebee's. We go to Taco Bell. That's like our mainstay. Like, we love Taco Bell. It's like one of the things that brought us together when we first started dating. It was like, my favorite place is Taco Bell. I was like, mine too. Let's get married. Okay, cool. So we got married. We loved Taco Bell. And it bled into our marriage, and we ate there all the time. And we also loved pizza. And at the time, when we lived in a little town called Hamilton, the only place that was open past like 10 o'clock was the gas station that served pizza. And so we didn't just like pizza, we liked really trashy gas station pizza, like the worst kind of pizza. Like it's been sitting under that little heat lamp for 2 hours, and it's hard and it's gross, but we'd go and get it anyways. And after about 5 months of binging on pizza and Taco Bell and tons of Bluebell cookies and cream ice cream. Does anybody else in here share an appreciation for some Bluebell? It's like, if you are, you're pretty much in my family. Like, I love Bluebell ice cream. And after about 5 months of eating that literally every day almost for times, some of you are like, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. We just liked it. I woke up one morning right at the beginning of January of 2018, and I looked at myself in the mirror. And while I should have been looking at an Alex who was 25, had just turned 25, in fact, at that time, and an Alex who should have been in the peak of his physical performance, because when you hit 25, that's like it. Like 23 to 26 is like where you hit the peak, you're like your prime. And while I should have been looking at a dude that was in his prime, I was looking at a 25-year-old who had the body of an 89-year-old. And I was embarrassed. And so, to make a long story short, I began my weight loss journey. And I started in January of 2018. And by about November of 2018, I had lost 55 pounds and was down to about 170 pounds. Now, that's the part where you're supposed to clap and give it up for me, because that's an accomplishment. Don't you like that? When you have the mic, you can make people clap for your accomplishments. I need that. It makes me feel good. But so I had lost weight, come down 55 pounds, and I learned something in my process of losing weight, and that if you have ever been there yourself, if you ever want to lose weight, one of the most important things that you're going to find out that you have to do is you have to surround yourself with people who encourage your weight loss journey. Because one of the problems I began running into was all of my friends liked greasy, fatty foods. So it was impossible for me to stay true to my resolutions and to my weight loss journey, because the people I was surrounding myself with, guess what they all like to eat as well? Taco Bell and nasty gas station pizza and Bluebell ice cream. So, and for anyone in here who's ever tried to do anything like that, if you've ever tried to give up smoking, you know that you can't hang out with all of your friends who like to smoke. Because if you're trying to give it up and they're still smoking, it's only a matter of time before you light one up and you smoke with them, right? If you've ever tried to give up alcohol, you know that the last place you want to find yourself on Friday night is at the bar, because maybe the first 2 or 3 times that you're there, you don't take a drink, you just go for water. But you know that before long, if you don't put yourself in a situation where you're surrounded by people who believe in you, who believe in what you're trying to do, you're going to find yourself taking that drink again. And all of this is true within the concept of dreaming as well. Big dreamers have to surround themselves with big dreamers. You've heard the old adage, show me your friends and I will show you your future. I love what Jim Rohn, he's a motivational speaker. He says, you are the average of the 5 people that you surround yourself with the most. Now, take a second and think about those 5 people, excluding your children. Because some of you are like, well, I have 4 children and my wife, so there we go. I must be a child. So excluding your children, who are the 5 people your peers? Who are the 5 peers that you surround yourself with the most? Really take a second and think about it right now. The 5 people you surround yourself with the most. You have the people in mind? All right. Now think about those people and be honest with yourself. Do those people push you in your goals? Do those people support the dreams that God has put on the inside of you? Do those people push you in your walk with God, or are those people holding you back? 1 Corinthians 15:33, it says, bad company corrupts good character. Hear me. It is important who you surround yourself with. The Bible even agrees with this. It's vitally important. But what I would say to that verse is if bad company can corrupt good character, then I would venture to say that we can flip it and say, in the same way, good company can probably empower good character. I want to take it even a step further. Proverbs 27:17. Most of us, especially if you're dudes and you're Christians, we quote this verse so much. It says, as iron sharpens iron, so one friend sharpens another. Now, while it's sweet to say this concerning our friendships, it's like, oh, this is my iron buddy, like iron sharpens iron, I'm around him all the time. If you really look at the nature of iron sharpening iron, most of the time, that doesn't look like what we want a friendship to look like. Most of the time, we surround ourselves with people who agree with us, who share the same opinions as us, who share the same hobbies as us. But the Bible says that a good friendship is like when iron sharpens iron. And when you look at the nature of iron sharpening iron, it's not always a smooth relationship. Iron sharpening iron, there's friction involved sometimes. Sparks fly when iron sharpens iron. I believe the Bible is saying that a real friendship is one where you're around the people so much that even when they disagree with you, it's because they believe in you. You're surrounding yourself with people who, because they believe in you, they're not afraid to see some friction. They're not afraid to make things a little bit uncomfortable. I believe the Bible is saying that while we need to surround ourselves with the right people, we don't always have to surround ourselves with people who just flatter us all the time. Like the real friendship is not surrounding ourselves with people who always agree with us and who always share the same opinions as us. This past year, the past couple years, when I was living in Alabama, I was surrounded by a group of people who moved there to be in ministry school. And I had already graduated from ministry school, and I was working for the ministry. And if you ever want honest opinions about your preaching style or about how you could get better, the person to go to is not the person who's never preached before. You know what I'm saying? I was around a bunch of people who've never preached before. They're in ministry school. They've never even done it. And so I could not seem to merit any honest opinions, any really good, friendly critiques about how I could get better. And then I moved home in August. And I got around my dad, who for years has been preaching. He knows the game of preaching. And while I couldn't merit any honest opinions before, now I found myself in a situation where I think I was getting more honest opinions about my preaching than I even wanted in the first place. And don't get me wrong, I needed it. I genuinely needed it. And sometimes it was tough to hear, and sometimes it's not always what I wanted to hear because, on the inside, I was like, I just wanted him to be like, you're the greatest preacher I've ever heard. Like, you're amazing. Like, you're better than anyone's ever been. And that's not what happened. And he didn't always say what I wanted, what I wanted to hear, but I was willing to listen, and I was willing to receive, and that's a whole nother sermon in itself. If you want to grow in your craft, are you getting honest feedback from anybody? Are you getting honest critiques from people that love you? And are you listening to those and applying those to your life? And while that was happening, I was able to apply those honest, sometimes even brutal critiques because I knew that my dad believed in me. He wasn't giving me this honest feedback because he was insecure or because he wanted me to feel bad. He was giving me that honest feedback because he so believed in the dreams that I had for my life. He was willing to say that uncomfortable thing even when I didn't always want to hear it. You have to surround yourself with people who are going to be willing to shoot straight with you. If you want to grow, if you want to pursue your dreams, you have to be willing to surround yourself with people who are going to say the right thing, even when it's the thing that's going to feel uncomfortable. Now, I know, I personally, and this is you already know this, I can't identify with everybody in this room. I don't have kids. I've never worked a job where I had to work 60 hours a week. And so I understand that some of you genuinely have a lack of time. You have work, you have responsibility, you have a family, and surrounding yourself with people is hard enough when you're struggling to even surround yourself with your own family. It's like, I just want to be home and hang out with my kids more. What, are you telling me that I have to go hang out with my friends now on top of my responsibilities? I'm saying no to that. I'm not saying that you have to, if you want to be a great dreamer, you have to be around tons of people. That's not it at all. But there are sources available for everybody in here. Even if you don't have a ton of time, even if you're not surrounded by a big friend group of people who can, believe in your dreams and push you in those, there are books you can be reading. There are podcasts that are available that you can listen to on your way to work. There are small groups here at this church where you can find yourself surrounded by people who believe in your dreams. There are social media pages that you can follow that while we are swiping through Instagram or Facebook and wasting a little bit of time, maybe you stumble across a really good quote that pushes you in that. For some of you, it boils down to your devotional life. Maybe you don't have time for other people or for hanging out or for getting sharpened by some of these outside sources. And for some of you, you could get the exact same thing if you would just, even this year, decide that every day you're going to spend 15 minutes in the presence of God. You're going to pray. You're going to read your Bible. You're going to get in your prayer closet and let the Holy Spirit himself comfort you and encourage you in your dream life. You're going to open up this word that we place our entire eternities on, that most of us haven't even read. You're going to open up and you're going to let it speak to you. Because hear me, that's where Joseph was. Joseph, he didn't have a supportive family. We read it. They despised him for his dreams. He obviously didn't have podcasts to listen to. He didn't have a friend group that was super close. He didn't have social media. He didn't have cool music to listen to. Joseph didn't even have the Bible. It hadn't been created yet. And then we get down to verse 13, and this is what happens. His father, he looks at him, and he says, Joseph, I'm going to send you to your brothers. And we find in this situation, we find Joseph's father intentionally putting him in a situation where he's surrounded by people who don't believe in his dreams. And if I can make a promise to you, it is this. The father, he at some point in your life will intentionally put you around people who aren't always the quality of people that you could hope to be surrounded by. The Bible, it says we're called to go into all the world, right? We're not just called to go into the parts of the world where people agree with us and where people love us and where people encourage us all the time. It says we're called to go into all the world. Paul, he says, while we are not of this world, don't forget, we are still in it. And you never get to pick your family. You don't always get to pick your coworkers. For some of you, you don't even get to pick the people that you go to church with. So what happens when you find yourself in a situation where you're surrounded by people who don't believe in your dreams? You just give up, try again next time around? No, you got to keep dreaming. You got to do it anyways. You have to dream despite. Say right now, I just want everyone to shout this. Say, dream anyways. Dream anyways. You are the only person that you need to believe in the dreams that God has given you. If you don't believe in the validity of the dreams that he has given you, who will? Validation is nice, but it is not necessary. Some of you, you better get ready right now. You're going to start dreaming some big dreams, and this is what's going to happen. You're going to turn into the black sheep of your family because of your dreams. I'm warning you right now. You're going to turn into the black sheep in your town, maybe in your church, hopefully not in your church because hopefully we support your dreams, but you're going to turn into the black sheep at your job because people aren't always going to validate your dreams. I've heard this message preached before, and people, they talk about how the brothers didn't encourage Joseph in his dreams and the fathers didn't. And they'll preach it like this. They'll say, you know, you got to be careful who you share your dreams with. And now, while there is a little bit of truth in that, I actually disagree with that interpretation because it's not like Joseph went to like the town hall where everybody was in the marketplace screaming to everybody saying, guess what? I'm going to be your king. You're going to bow down to me. Like he didn't get on Facebook and proclaim to the entire world that he was going to be the king and he was going to be the ruler of everybody. No, he went to his family. He was careful who he shared his dream with. He went to the people that should have believed in him. He went to his own flesh and blood, his brothers and his father. Like I said, whenever I began my journey of losing weight, this would happen so many times. We would have people over to our house or we'd go out to eat. And while some of our friends would be eating pizza or ice cream or Taco Bell or the Mexican, you know, one of the 4 Mexican places that's in our town, just like every other small town in Tennessee. While they were eating that, you would find me eating something like grilled chicken and salad, or I would be like weighing my portions or like portioning out my ice cream. And this is what would happen almost every time. Somebody in there would say something like, bro, chill. You're hanging with the bros tonight. Like, just eat the pizza. Like, come on, calm down. Like, you're doing too much. Live a little bit. And while there is a little bit of truth hidden within those comments about me not necessarily needing to be so rigid 24/7 on my diet, see, what they didn't understand is that I had a dream. And my actions were determined by those dreams. I had a dream to fit into my pants again. You know what I'm saying? I had a dream to be healthy. I had a dream that maybe that summer I was going to be able to go swimming with my wife, who is 4 times better looking than I am, and somewhat in some way be proud. Let me make this promise to you. People are going to do the same thing when you start dreaming. They're going to look at you and they're going to say, dude, chill out. You're just a little bit too driven. And you know what you have to do? You have to dream anyways. People are going to say, man, calm down. Like you're dreaming too big. Like, you're doing too much. And you know what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to dream anyways. People are going to say, bro, you are working too hard. Have some time to yourself. And while there may be some truth in those comments, sometimes you always have to go back to this, that you dream anyways. Psalm 121, 1 and 2. It hit me this week like it's never hit me before. I was reading it, and it literally, it was in my Bible plan. It was perfect how it aligned with the message this week. In the verse, it says, I look up to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. We've probably heard that passage 1 or 2 times, but I love it because the psalmist here, it says he's looking to the mountains for his help. He's looking for natural help from a natural place. Because when he's looking to the mountains, what he's saying is, hidden within those mountains, there is safety, there's protection. Back in the day, if you wanted to win a war, you did it through the mountains because you were in a different, you were elevated, you had the higher ground. And the psalmist, he's saying, I'm looking to the mountains for my protection. I'm looking to the mountains for my safety. I'm looking to the mountains to make my dreams come true. But then you hear him get a revelation in the middle of writing this psalm. And he says, I look up to the mountains. Does my help come from there? And it's like all of a sudden on the inside of him, it wells up and he's like, no, my help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. And when you are truly passionate about something, you don't need validation from any outside source. Why? Because if God is for us, who can be against us? Others are not always going to give you validation. And when they don't, you know what you got to do? You got to dream anyways. You got to keep believing. You got to keep dreaming. You have got to dream. Your dreams are too important for you to give up on. There are people out there that are believing for you to dream, that are hoping that your dreams become reality. There is a crowd who is banking on you to say yes to the dreams that God has put in your heart. There are people who need you. But be warned, because while some of your dreams will merit applause from one crowd, those same dreams will get you attacked by another crowd. Joseph, he was gifted, like literally. His father had given him a gift of a robe, and it was really nice. And his brothers, it says they looked at that gift and they despised him for it. And let me make a declaration in case you were wondering. Everybody in this room, you're gifted, you're called, you're anointed. There are special and unique talents on the inside of everybody in this room that the Father has gifted you with. And I want to make sure that you know this. When you start thriving in those gifts, people are going to get jealous. People are going to get envious. It could be something that they never wanted to do before. But when you start thriving in your gift, people are always going to begin attacking you. People are always going to get jealous, right? But when we look at the story, while Joseph was gifted, we find that it wasn't his gifts that got him attacked. They didn't look at him and say, oh, here comes the boy with the nice robe. Let's kill him. And they're not going to say, here comes that kid that's really smart. Let's kill him for his gifts. They're not going to say, here comes that really successful business person. Let's get them. They're not going to say, here comes that really amazing mother or grandmother. Let's get them because of their gifts. No, this is what they said in verse 19. They said, here comes the dreamer. They said, come on, let's kill him and let's throw him into one of these cisterns. We can tell our father a wild animal has eaten him, and then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. Didn't say, then we'll see what becomes of his gifts. It said, then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. We applaud Joseph for his dreams. They attacked Joseph for his dreams. Some of you, you've experienced attack because of your dreams before. For some of you, you've been attacked for simply attending and dreaming with this church. And if you're there, I identify with you. As a senior in high school, I used to get called a cult member because I went to a church who was just doing it different. And most of the time, just simply doing it better than most of the churches in my community. So if that's happened to you, shake it off. Don't worry about it. It's happened to every dreamer that's ever come along. For some of you, if you've never been attacked, if you've never been attacked for your dreams, I encourage you, start dreaming and just wait and see what happens, right? Pass up on the piece of cake at the end of your meal and just see if someone doesn't just put a little bit of shame on you for passing up. It's little, but you'll hear the comments. They're going to be sly. They're going to be little, but they'll say, come on, man. It's like, live a little bit. Eat the cake. You know, you're going to hear it. For some of you, try to stop smoking. Believe me. All the friends you hung out with before that were so supportive of you, they loved you so much. When you start pursuing those dreams of getting free from nicotine, see how many of those friends stay around. See how many of those friends start feeling judged all of a sudden because you're pursuing your dreams. For some of you parents in here, I challenge you this year, make your kids walk with God a higher priority than their sports. See how many parents in the community start saying stuff behind your back. See how much attack you receive from that, because I promise you, it's coming. With the day and the age we live in, with social media the way that it is, our attackers are one click away. They're so close. And for some of you, depending on the size and the nature of your dreams, your attacks may be even more intense than that. If you would, just direct your attention to the screens real quick.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners, will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood? Because I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today. When we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Here comes the dreamer, they said. Let's kill him. Then we'll see what becomes of his dreams. When I was preparing for this message this past week, I kept reading over those lines thinking, where have I read that before? Like I knew I'd read it in the Bible, but I felt like there was somewhere else that I'd read that. And thanks to Facebook reminders. Thank you, Facebook. Normally, Facebook reminders don't come through for me. Normally, I get reminded about poor fashion choices or a bad relationship that I had made 4 years ago or something like that. But this time, my Facebook reminded me that 1 year ago, ironically, 1 year ago this week, I found myself in Memphis at the National Civil Rights Museum, and written on the bottom of the tombstone of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself is that verse, "Here comes the dreamer. Let's kill him, and then we'll see what becomes of his dreams." Dr. King is easily one of the biggest dreamers of the last century. I mean, he didn't need any outside sources to validate his dreams. We see that. He was murdered for his dreams. But let's not forget that long before he was murdered, simply for his dreams, right? It was his dreams. Long before he was murdered for his dreams, I don't want us to forget that his family was threatened because of his dreams, that he was beaten because of his dreams. He was thrown in jail wrongfully multiple times. Him and his crew had dogs unleashed on them in public streets because of his dreams, and his name was slandered all over America. And I don't think it's a coincidence that a year ago this week, I found myself in celebrating at the National Civil Rights Museum one of the biggest dreamers our country's ever seen. I don't think it is a coincidence that colliding with our dream series, we didn't realize it when we planned this out, that tomorrow would be Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I don't think it is a coincidence that those things are lining up with this series, because I believe that in some way it's almost like God, he's nodding his head in agreement with the direction of this church. I believe it's almost like he is encouraging us to be a group of people who decide that we are going to dream anyways. Even if the dreams that he gives us are outrageous, you know what we do? We dream anyways. Even when nobody else believes in the dreams that we have on the inside of our hearts, what do? We dream anyways. Even if it's going to take time and effort and blood and sweat and tears and nobody's going to appreciate it. We dream anyways. And what Martin Luther King Jr. knew, what Dr. King knew, and what Joseph would find out soon enough, is that there are countless numbers of people who are banking on you and I to dream anyways. You guys may stand up with us this morning as we begin to close out the service. For some of you in here this morning, this was a different church service maybe for you. It was a different kind of message to preach. But you know in your heart You feel the Spirit calling you. You feel Him drawing you toward God. And maybe you've never had that initial moment where you said yes to following Jesus, where you were what modern day people would say, where you've gotten saved. And today, you feel the Lord. You feel His heart. You feel Him drawing you. And you're ready to, for the first time today, say yes to not only dreaming with God, but living for God. You're ready to say yes to giving Him everything, because what you know is that you can't dream with God if you don't have a relationship with Him. So with heads bowed and eyes closed as the keys begin to play, for those of you in here who today is going to be the day where everything changes, you can feel your heart beating right now and you're ready to surrender everything to a God who wants your entire life and to a God who wants to use you to shake your world. If that's you today, on the count of 3, what I want you to do is I just want you to raise your right hand to heaven. And I want you to tell God, with a simple raise of your hands, that I'm ready to dream for you. I'm ready to live for you. I'm ready to put my faith in Jesus for the saving of my soul. If that's you, on the count of 3, I want you to raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. Yes, there are hands going up. I see you with your hand up. I see you with your hand up. Thank you guys so much.